This lesson will be on using TI-83 or 84 calculators to perform basic calculations using scientific notation. I'll assume you know how to set your calculator to show results in that notation, and that you can set it to show a particular number of significant digits. Those topics are both in Lesson 2. Our first problem is just dividing a number in scientific notation by a number in standard notation. Here are our keystrokes: 1.40 second EE 5 divided by 17. We're done entering the problem, and the display will look like this. To get the calculator to solve it, we have to press the Enter key. And here's the result, shown in the notation your calculator uses, 8.24 E3. To write the answer on a homework assignment, you should write 8.24 times 10 to the third, as it's shown here. Let's do another one. This one has two numbers multiplied together, each of which is written in scientific notation and each of which has a negative exponent. The keystrokes for the calculation are 1.87 second EE. Now, this number has a negative exponent, so we need to enter the minus sign wrapped in parentheses, and then 6 for the exponent, times 6.53 second EE, another negative exponent, so again we use the minus sign wrapped in parentheses, 8. The numbers are entered. We just have to do the calculation by pressing Enter. And you can see the calculator's version of the result here. If you write out on an assignment or test, you should write it like this: 1.22 times 10 to the minus 13th. On these problems we've done, notice how few keystrokes we've had to do. We haven't had to use parentheses. The only parentheses that show up are on that key with the minus sign, and we don't even have to enter those. Now we'll do a division problem, and you'll see something similar. As I list the keystrokes for this problem, notice how few there are. Using the built-in scientific notation function in your calculator helps minimize these. You might think that with a division we'd have to be more careful, but for a simple one like this, we can just punch it in. Here's what we do. 5.91 second EE 5 divided by 9.62 second EE. The denominator has a negative exponent on the 10, so I have to use the minus sign wrapped in parentheses. And then 6. Enter. The result the calculator gives is shown here, and here is the way you should write it: 6.14 times 10 to the 10th. Let's do another one. On this one, you might pause the playback and try this problem out on your own, then I'll work on it. The keystrokes for this calculation are 9.87 second EE 8 divided by 1 second EE 6. That may differ from what you did. Enter, and the result is 9.87 E2, or 9.87 times 10 to the second. Does that agree with what you have? Did you happen to get something else, like maybe 9.87 times 10 to the first? If you did, you've made an error that I've made myself several times. Now I know to watch out for it, but when you're in a rush, you might do this. Here's what happens. 10 to the 6th means 1 times 10 to the 6th. You look at that, and you misinterpret it, that 10 to the 6th in the denominator. It does not mean 10 second EE6, although it's very tempting to hit that instead. 10 second EE6 is actually 10 times 10 to the 6th, which is equal to 10 to the 7th. That's why I was careful to enter the denominator with the keystrokes 1 second EE6. The mistake that can arise here is one that most people who use calculators for scientific notation have made, so try to watch out for it. Now I'm going to show you a couple of ways to do the division problem we did, but instead of using the calculator's scientific notation function, we're going to use other functions that seem like they should work, but lead to errors unless you're very careful. Here are the keystrokes for this first way of doing it. 5.91 times second 10 to the x. This is the button just to the left of the 7. To access the blue letters written above the button, we have to push the second key first, and that lets us use that 10 to the x function. Now our exponent is a 5, so that's how we add it, divided by 9.62 times second 10 to the x, that same button again. Now we've got a negative exponent, so we use the minus sign wrapped in parentheses, and then 6. And then we hit enter. The result of the calculation is shown here. Outlined in the yellow box is the expression we entered. It looks like scientific notation, complete with raised exponents on the tens, but we got the wrong answer. The correct answer is from our previous calculation and is 6.14 times 10 to the 10th. By the method we just used, we got 6.14 times 10 to the minus 2. Our incorrect answer is 10 to the 12th times too small. That's a trillion, a factor of a trillion that it's off by. What went wrong? Before answering that, I'll show you another way to do this incorrectly, something that might have occurred to you for doing scientific notation. We'll do the same problem again, using yet another function built into the calculator. The keystrokes are 5.91 times 10 caret. This time I'm using the caret symbol, which is how you raise a number to a power. 5. That's our exponent. Divided by 9.62 times 10 caret. Now we've got a minus sign in this denominator, so I use that minus sign wrapped in parentheses. And 6 was the exponent. Enter. And the result is, it looks just like that previous one actually. Should we expect the answer to be any different? We get the same wrong answer that we did last time. There's our expression. Looks like scientific notation. And there's the correct answer, same as it was before. Again, we're off by a factor of 10 to the 12th. What's the problem with these two ways of entering the numbers? Let's look at the two denominators from the different ways of entering them. When we use the scientific notation with the second EE exponent entry, the number will be displayed as it is here, 9.62 E minus 6. That entire thing in the box there is treated as a single number by your calculator, and it's stored as a single number. Now look at the way the numbers displayed in either of the two versions that gave us the wrong answer. In the expression there, in the box, that 9.62 is stored as a single number. The multiplication symbol is actually an operation done on the number, and the 10 to the minus 6th is another number. The result is that your calculator takes the numerator, which it sees as two numbers, just like it did with the denominator, but with multiplication that's no problem, but it takes that numerator and divides it by 9.62. Then your calculator multiplies that result by 10 to the minus 6th. So instead of dividing by 10 to the minus 6th, we multiply by it. It is possible to make either of those two ways of entering numbers work, but you have to wrap each denominator in parentheses. You may have noticed that both of these two ways of entering the numbers took additional keystrokes. In fact, 2 additional keystrokes to solve the problem, and we still got the wrong answer. To get the correct answer using these number entry methods, we'd have to include parentheses around the denominators, which means 2 more keystrokes for a total of 4 on that one problem. I'm lazy, so I avoid that. The moral of the story: there are actually 2 morals to the story. The first is this: don't use the times 10 to the x or times 10 caret 5 method for scientific notation. And the second is use the second EE function for scientific notation. That's it for this lesson. An additional lesson will do more advanced calculations using scientific notation.